Did you know that while over 40 million people have died from immunodeficiency-related illnesses, the world barely remembers the lesbian stars who were among them? From a runway icon like Gia Carangi to powerful voices like Cecilia Gentili. Here are lesbian stars who died of immunodeficiency. 1. Gia Carangi. She wasn't just a model. Gia was a force. Born in Philadelphia, her childhood was full of pain. Her mom left when she was a teenager. Her dad stayed, but love was hard to find. At 17, Gia packed her things and moved to New York. She didn't just show up. She stood out. With dark eyes and a bold look, Gia didn't try to fit in. She was proud of being different. Big fashion names like Versace and Dior wanted her. Magazines said she was the future of modeling. But inside, Gia was still hurting. Fame didn't fix the sadness she carried from her past. She started using opioids. The substance helped her forget, but it also hurt her. She missed photo shoots and lost jobs. Rehab tried to help her, but she kept falling back. Then in 1985, she got very sick. Doctors said she had an immunodeficiency. She died in a hospital at just 26. The world forgot her. But Gia made history. She was one of the first famous women to die from immunodeficiency. 2. Cecilia Gentili. In Argentina, being different could cost you everything. That's where Cecilia was born, a young trans girl facing harm from the very systems meant to protect. Hoping for safety and a future, she moved to the United States. But even there, life stayed tough. No papers, trans, Latina, and living with an immunodeficiency. Kindness was rare. Still, Cecilia didn't give up. She spoke up. In New York, her voice became strong. Working for an immunodeficiency group, Cecilia helped change laws and fought for health care, housing, and respect. The work wasn't just in offices. It happened on the streets, offering hugs and real help. Then came her own group, one that helped schools and clinics treat trans people with care and dignity, not just with words, but with real action. Cecilia was also an artist. Through acting and storytelling, she shared her life on stage. Her one-woman show talked about adult work, immunodeficiency, and the strength it took to survive. Cecilia died in 2024. Not old, but deeply impactful. Her death hurt, but her life showed others how to keep going. 3. Lady Kateria. She arrived in New York full of energy. Lady Kateria came from Puerto Rico and quickly became a star. In the ballroom world, where people danced and performed to feel seen, she shined the brightest. She moved like fire and spoke with power. When she won Miss Continental Plus in 1993, she didn't just win a crown, she made history. 2 years later, she became the first openly immunodeficiency positive trans woman to win the Miss Continental pageant. Back then, people didn't talk about immunodeficiency openly, but Kateria was brave. She told crowds she was living with it. She wanted people to know the truth. She didn't want anyone to look away or pretend she didn't matter. Her dresses sparkled, her voice was strong, and every time she performed, she stood up for people who were ignored. But she didn't just care about fame. She spoke up for her community, Latina trans women, lesbians, and others who were left out of the conversation about immunodeficiency. She didn't just want applause. She wanted justice. In 1999, she passed away from problems related to immunodeficiency, but her voice and courage are still remembered. She showed the world what it means to be brave and proud. 4. Barbara May Cameron. Born in 1954 on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, Barbara May Cameron grew up with a strong connection to her native roots and a strong desire to help her people. When she moved to San Francisco, she didn't just move to a city. She became part of history. In 1975, she helped start Gay American Indians. It was the first group to support Native LGBTQ+ people. It was a safe place and a strong voice for people who were often ignored. The group brought warmth to those who felt left out. Barbara was a writer and photographer. She used her art to show the lives of Native, lesbian, and immunodeficiency-positive women. She didn't stay silent. She told the world, "You will see us. You will hear us." When immunodeficiency started hurting her community, she spoke up. She wanted health education that talked about Native stories, pain, and beauty. She joined national health groups and shared the truth, even when others didn't want to listen. In 2002, she passed away from immunodeficiency-related problems, but her work lives on. Young Two-Spirit people still carry her message. Her words and actions still help shape policies and open doors for others. 5. Amber Hollibaugh. Never trying to act safe or easy, Amber Hollibaugh wanted to be honest. Born in 1946, she grew up poor, queer, and tough. She didn't hide who she was or make her story smaller just to fit in. She stood up for people no one else talked about: poor lesbians, adult workers, and people with immunodeficiency. In her book, My Dangerous Desires, she wrote about real life with no sugarcoating. She showed that for many people, fighting for love and joy also meant fighting to stay alive. Amber wasn't only a writer, she helped build new ways to share truth. She helped make a movie called The Heart of the Matter. It showed how women with immunodeficiency were being left out. The film said clearly, "We are here, we matter, we are in pain." The world was focusing on men with immunodeficiency, and Amber made sure women were seen too. She worked hard to bring real intimacy education into schools, lessons that told the full truth, even the hard parts. When she led the National Intimate Health Resource Center, she made sure the voices of people on the outside were heard. She also talked about home, safety, and care. To her, being healthy didn't just mean medicine. It meant having a place to live, being loved, and telling the truth about your life. Amber lived with an immunodeficiency for many years. She died in 2023. Even near the end, her voice stayed strong. She showed others that it was okay to tell the full story, even the parts others wanted to hide. 6. Sean Lang. When the immunodeficiency crisis hit in the 1980s, fear and silence took over. But Sean Lang stayed strong. She didn't fight with force. She fought with care and brave words. For over 30 years, she worked to help people who had been left behind. Sean knew something many people missed. Queer women were being ignored. They weren't in the research, they weren't in the stories, they weren't in the plans. So she made space for them. She helped others speak out and made sure they got care. At Immunodeficiency Connecticut, she didn't just talk about change, she made it happen. She helped create housing, protect privacy, and bring real help to people like adult workers, substance users, poor folks, and people of color. But the strongest thing about Sean was her heart. She helped train doctors to listen. She helped clinics treat everyone with respect. In the rooms where leaders made choices, she always asked, "What about them?" Sean died in 2021 from the illness she had fought for so long. But her voice didn't disappear. It lives on in the rules she helped write, in the students she taught, and in the people she helped. She helped change the system. But we still have to ask, is that system doing enough for the people she stood up for? 7. Joan Gibbs. In New York, a city that never rested, Joan Gibbs lived with the same unstoppable energy. A black lesbian lawyer who cared deeply about justice, Joan used her strong voice and smart thinking to fight for her people. Whether in court or out in the streets, she stood up against unfair rules and systems. When immunodeficiency was hurting black communities the most, Joan didn't look away. She jumped in to help. She used the law to fight back against the unfair treatment in hospitals, homes, and jails. But Joan didn't just sit at a desk. She went to protests, helped at clinics, and listened to people in community meetings. She worked with groups like ACT UP, the Audre Lorde Project, and the National Black Lesbian and Gay Leadership Forum. Joan made sure people saw that black lesbians mattered. She fought for better mental health care, protection from police, and services that treated people with respect. Joan didn't want attention. She wanted fairness. In court, she spoke the truth. At rallies, she spoke with passion. She showed that the law could help people when used with heart and strength. Joan Gibbs died in 2024 from health problems caused by immunodeficiency. Her death was a big loss, but her work still helps people today. Every time a young black lesbian gets help from a legal office without being judged, Joan's spirit is there. Some people called her extreme, but maybe she was just right all along. 8. Carol LaFavor, Ojibwe, a nurse, a writer, and a proud lesbian. Carol LaFavor came from a strong people and carried that strength in everything she did. She didn't hide the fact that she had immunodeficiency. She spoke about it proudly, pushing the world to pay attention. In the 1990s, Native women were often told to stay silent, but Carol stood up in front of the U.S. Congress and said what needed to be said. Indigenous women were getting sick, and no one seemed to care. She mixed modern medicine with traditional healing to help her community survive. Carol also told stories. In one of her books, she wrote about a two-spirit character who healed from trauma. It was one of the first stories to say, "We are here, we love, and we are strong." Her writing helped others feel seen and heard. She wanted doctors to understand Native ways. She pushed for immunodeficiency care that included not just medicine, but also songs, traditions, and respect for culture. Her work changed how clinics helped Native people, reminding everyone that Indigenous people are still here and still fighting. Carol died in 2011 from immunodeficiency-related health problems, but her voice still echoes. Her name is remembered in Native healthcare, in places that honor both science and spirit. She never gave up. She taught others to survive by remembering where they came from. 9. Shotzi Weisberger. In New York City, a woman named Shotzi Weisberger stood out because she cared when others didn't. People called her the people's grandma. She wasn't on TV or in music, but she was a hero to many. She worked as a nurse and helped people when others were too afraid. Shotzi was born in the 1930s and decided early on to help others. During the 1980s, when immunodeficiency was spreading and scaring people, she didn't run away. She ran toward those who needed help. Many people with immunodeficiency were left alone, but Shotzi stayed with them. She held their hands, cared for their wounds, and stayed by their side. At that time, even doctors were scared to help people with immunodeficiency, but Shotzi wasn't. She believed everyone deserved care and kindness. She did what others wouldn't, with love and without fear. Shotzi also joined protest groups like AKT Up and Queer Nation. She marched and spoke up for people who were ignored. She mixed nursing and fighting for justice into one strong message. Even in her 80s and 90s, she still went to protests and held signs high. She was proud to be a lesbian, a nurse, and an older woman who didn't care what others thought. She believed in love, fairness, and being loud when it mattered. While others slowed down with age, Shotzi kept going. She also talked openly about death. She helped others understand that it doesn't have to be scary. For queer people who were pushed away by family, she became the family they needed. When Shotzi died in 2022, many felt her loss. But her work didn't disappear. People remembered her, and her actions inspired others. She showed that caring deeply and speaking out can change the world. 10. Lorraine Hutchins. Also standing up when the world ignored her, Lorraine Hutchins was a bi woman who saw how people like her were left out, both by straight people and sometimes by the queer community too. Born in the 1900s, she wanted others to feel seen. In 1991, she helped create a book called Bi, Any Other Name. It shared stories from bi people of all kinds. It helped people understand and feel less alone. Lorraine also worked hard to talk about immunodeficiency. She had the virus and saw how bi women were often forgotten. Some doctors didn't ask them the right questions. Many thought bi women weren't in danger. Lorraine showed that wasn't true. She taught college classes, led workshops, and trained doctors. She showed that staying quiet about risk made things worse. She wanted everyone to be safer and better cared for. She also helped people who had little support. Bi women often faced money problems and poor health care. Lorraine fought for them. She wanted their pain to be seen and their lives to be better. Lorraine died in 2020 from problems linked to immunodeficiency. Most news shows didn't say her name, but in queer groups, she was a hero. Her books, her classes, and her fight still matter today. Lorraine helped open a door for others to be heard, but how many more voices stayed quiet, waiting for the world to listen? 11. Denise Krejci. In the middle of the U.S., Denise Krejci stood up when others stayed quiet. She knew something many people ignored, that women who loved other women could also get immunodeficiency. Back then, most people thought only gay men or straight couples were at risk. Denise spoke up in places where no one wanted to hear the truth. She didn't use big fancy tools. She used meetings, pamphlets, and workshops. In the 1990s, she knocked on doors and talked to people. She told them the truth. Immunodeficiency doesn't care who you love. It can hurt anyone. Ignoring that truth was dangerous. She made safe places where women could talk, learn, and support each other. She taught how to stay safe with facts, not fear. She helped create support groups across her area. Many of these women had nowhere else to go. But Denise listened. She worked hard in women's health centers. She wrote guides for doctors so they could take lesbian health seriously. She taught younger women how to stand strong. She talked about real stuff people didn't want to say out loud, things like menstrual blood and intimacy toys. Because not talking about it was worse. When she died in 2001, many people felt the loss. But her work didn't disappear. Today, you can still see her impact. Health guides and clinics that include queer women? That's Denise's fingerprint. She broke the silence. And silence never comes back the same after someone like her speaks. But across the ocean, someone else was raising her voice. 13. Nancy Jean McNeil. At the edge of every protest, hands tight, voice loud, Nancy Jean McNeil stood with purpose. She wasn't just fighting immunodeficiency, she was fighting a system that forgot people like her. Lesbians with immunodeficiency who were left out of research and denied good care. In the 1980s, when hospitals turned women away and people said lesbians were safe, Nancy knew the truth. The biggest danger wasn't just the illness, it was invisible. Nancy joined ACT UP Los Angeles, a loud and brave group. The world said women didn't need to worry. But Nancy knew that wasn't true. Doctors only tested medicine on men. They didn't think women needed help. Nancy told the world this was wrong. She didn't whisper. She marched, handed out flyers, and stood in the way of unfair rules. She helped write guides for lesbian and bi women about how to stay safe. She made booklets and gave talks that saved lives. Clinics didn't share her work, so she did it herself, one street at a time. Nancy also helped create safe places for women with immunodeficiency. These were support groups where no one felt shame and no one stayed silent. When most people only focused on gay men, Nancy helped the women who were left out. She passed away in 2023, still fighting, still speaking up. Most newspapers didn't even write about her. But every health study that includes women today, every safe space for queer women, has a piece of her work in it. 14. Mary Lucy. Never one to stay quiet, Mary Lucy yelled, marched, and carried the anger of being forgotten. Not just for herself, but for every woman like her. When the world stayed quiet about women with immunodeficiency, Mary made noise that no one could ignore. Like Nancy, she fought with ACT UP Los Angeles. But Mary had lost many friends. She saw too many people die waiting for help, waiting for medicine that was already made but kept away. That pain turned into action. She planned rallies that pushed into hospitals and stood in front of government buildings. Her signs were not just paper, they were warnings. They spoke for women who were tired of being ignored. Mary had a special skill. She could take hard words from doctors and laws and make them easy to understand. She taught poor women, adult workers, and women of color what their rights were. She gave them the power to ask for care. When hospitals said no, Mary helped create secret helplines. She found ways to get medicine to the people who needed it. She didn't do it for money. She did it because no one else was doing it. When she passed away in 2023, people lit candles in front of clinics and protest spots. They weren't just saying goodbye. They were saying Mary was never meant to be quiet, and we aren't either. When the system forgets you, who makes sure your story is still told? 15. Cheryl Somerville. In the hot, quiet towns of Georgia in the early 1990s, Cheryl Somerville was just doing her job. She worked at a Cracker Barrel restaurant, showing up every day, working hard, and being kind. But one day, she was fired. Not for being late or doing something wrong. She was fired because she was a lesbian. That was the only reason. Cheryl didn't stay quiet. She turned her pain into action. News about her firing spread, and people all over the country started talking. But Cheryl didn't just talk. She helped lead protests. She stood in front of crowds and said, "This isn't right." Instead of walking away, she walked toward the fight. She joined labor groups that stood with LGBTQ+ people. She met others who knew how it felt to be pushed aside. She also noticed something others didn't want to see. Many queer women in the South were getting sick from immunodeficiency, but no one was helping them. So Cheryl did. She set up meetings in churches and small town halls. She used clear, simple words so everyone could understand. She brought safer intimacy kits to places that had never seen them. She worked with local clinics to make them kinder and safer. Some towns were full of fear and whispers, but Cheryl spoke louder than those whispers. She made sure people knew the truth. She handed out flyers in gas stations and laundromats. She taught people how to stay safe, and she made sure no one felt alone. Cheryl knew the virus didn't care if you were a man or a woman, and she knew silence helped the virus grow. So she talked, she taught, she cared, and she helped queer women protect themselves. In 1995, Cheryl passed away from problems caused by immunodeficiency. She was still young, she still had fire inside her. But even though she died, her work did not. She helped change how clinics treat queer people. In many small towns in the South, people still remember her name. Her story lives on in every person who speaks up when something is wrong. 16. Jackie Bishop. In New York City, far from the spotlight, Jackie Bishop worked hard to help people. She wasn't famous, but everyone who met her remembered her. In the 1980s and 1990s, when the disease was spreading rapidly, most help was going to men. The stories of women, especially lesbians, were often ignored. But Jackie wouldn't let that happen. She threw parties that were more than just fun. These events helped people stay safe. There was music, yes, but also learning. At her parties, women could get free health supplies, hear talks about how to protect themselves, and leave feeling stronger. No one was judged. Everyone was welcome. But that was just the start. Jackie also worked in women's clinics. She helped write health guides in English and Spanish. She made sure the right people got the right help. She knew that race and money mattered when it came to health, so she made sure people who were often left out were included. She didn't wait for people to come to her. She walked from place to place with flyers, zines, and lists of places to get help. She trained other women in small homes and tiny libraries. If a bookstore closed, she opened her door. If someone was scared to speak in public, she gave them answers in private. Everything she did came from love. She focused on helping Black and brown lesbians and working-class women. She gave answers when even doctors didn't. She made people feel seen and heard. Jackie died in the early 2000s from an immunodeficiency-related illness. She didn't make the news, but her work still lives on. Her words are used in health classes today. Her smile still shines through the guides others made in her name. 17. Peggy Farrow. In the late 1980s, Peggy Farrow went to work at a hospital as always. She was a medical worker and a lesbian. One day, a needle poked her by accident. That needle had immunodeficiency. Her life changed in one moment. Peggy could have stayed quiet, but she didn't. She started asking questions. Why weren't hospital workers being kept safe? Why weren't there better rules? She spoke up so often and so loudly that people had to listen. She was speaking for every hospital worker, nurses, cleaners, everyone. She even went to Congress. She was on TV. Her message was clear. Safety is a right, not a special gift. Everyone in a hospital should be protected. At the time, safety rules were weak or didn't exist. Peggy helped change that. She pushed for what we now call universal precautions: gloves, safe needle bins, face shields. These are now normal in hospitals thanks to her. They help stop the spread of sickness and keep everyone safe. Peggy also talked about how lesbian women were treated badly or ignored in hospitals. Some people didn't believe her story. Some blamed her, but she kept going. She used her voice to make things better. Peggy died in the late 1990s from an immunodeficiency-related illness. But today, when someone puts on gloves at a hospital or safely throws away a needle, that's because of her. Her bravery changed the rules. Her work still protects lives today. But Peggy wasn't the only one who refused to stay quiet. Another voice was rising, calm, strong, and ready to make change. 18. Susan Cowell. In New York City, Susan Cowell didn't build tall buildings. She built something more important. She started a movement to help lesbian women and older people who were sick with immunodeficiency. Many people didn't talk about them. They were forgotten, but Susan saw their pain and decided to fight for them. At a time when most help went to men, Susan spoke up. She worked for many years to make sure that older people and queer women with immunodeficiency got the care they needed. She saw them in clinics and hospitals, sick and alone, so she became their voice. Susan didn't just talk, she took action. She helped build clinics, trained doctors, and wrote papers that helped change laws. She knew that many older women with immunodeficiency didn't just feel sick, they felt alone, poor, and scared, so she created places for them to live safely and with care. These homes made people feel seen and loved. Her work helped change city and state rules. She got money to start new programs that others ignored. Thanks to her, people who had no family or money found a home and care. She showed that health care should be about more than just medicine. It should be about respect and love. Susan also helped doctors learn how to treat older women better. Many didn't believe older women were still at risk, but Susan showed them they were wrong. She helped change health rules so that everyone mattered, no matter their age, gender, or who they loved. Her ideas changed hospitals, schools, and health programs. When Susan died in 2023, many people felt the loss. But she left behind more than sadness. She left behind buildings, teams, better rules, and a strong idea. Everyone deserves good care. Her work still helps people today. 19. Lori McBride. In the 1980s, people were scared. A new sickness, immunodeficiency, was spreading. Many thought only men got it. But Lori McBride knew that was wrong. She was a lesbian and a fighter. She knew silence could be deadly. Lori didn't march in the streets. Her fight was in government offices. She worked on laws. She made sure rules protected everyone, not just some. She wanted laws to help people, especially women, queer people, and people of color. Lori worked with other women. She built strong teams and told lawmakers the truth. Women were getting sick too, and they faced different problems, like shame, silence, and being ignored. She made sure the government started counting women in their reports. She made sure no one was left out. She didn't want to be famous. She wanted justice. And because of her, health clinics started asking better questions. Rules were made to protect people's private lives. She changed things with her words. Lori died in 2020. Immunodeficiency didn't end her fast. It stayed in her body for years. It hurt her slowly. But even in death, her work stayed strong. Every rule that includes women, every clinic that helps queer patients. That's Lori's work. She changed the system. 20. Connie Norman. In Los Angeles, one voice rose above the noise, clear, fierce, and unapologetic. That voice belonged to Connie Norman. A proud trans woman, an activist, and a fighter, Connie didn't ask for space. She took it. In the 1980s and 90s, when immunodeficiency was spreading and trans people were pushed aside, she stepped into the light and spoke up. She didn't whisper. She went on radio shows, TV programs, and into protest lines. Her words were sharp, her spirit even sharper. She called herself the immunodeficiency diva, but she was more than a name. She was a lifeline. Connie told the world what it didn't want to hear, that people like her mattered, that trans women living with immunodeficiency existed, and that silence was deadly. She worked with ACT UP and other activist groups, shouting from podiums and sidewalks alike. But she wasn't only loud, she was kind. She hugged strangers at clinics, listened to stories no one else wanted to hear, and reminded people they weren't alone. Her power came from truth, and she gave it away freely. Connie didn't fight to be famous. She fought so others wouldn't die in the dark. She wanted better care, real information, and a system that saw trans lives as worth saving. Her message wasn't complicated. She said, "We are here, we are sick, we need help, and we deserve to live." In 1996, Connie died from complications related to immunodeficiency. She was only 47, but her voice didn't disappear. It lives in the policies she helped shape, in the people she inspired, and in the echoes of every protest that demands justice for those still left behind. She showed what it meant to speak with fire, to love without shame, and to never, ever go quiet. Go quiet. Go quiet.